Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video, and today I'm going to talk about the Citadel Tier 17 monster specters that we've been testing as of league start of Necropolis 3.24. Before kicking into the video, there's 70% of you guys watching that are not subscribed to this channel. 70. We're this close to 100,000 subscribers. It supports the channel a lot, so I do appreciate it. If you're done watching this video and you happen to enjoy it, please do consider liking and subscribing to the content. Thank you. To get these specters, you have a couple of options. The adversaries modifier allows you to actually have them in lower than tier 17 maps, but the most common way to get these specters is to pop a tier 17 map, just desecrate in the map till you get them, or kill them in the map and pick them up that way. But if you're too low level, you can actually have a tier 17 map and just desecrate them in there. Or you can swing by my global channel in game by typing /global6666 and just ask for them in there. The first specter I'm going to be talking about is the Flame Creator. All of these specters I'll be mentioning in this video, they are all found in the tier 17 maps, and I've gone out of my way to literally blow up all of my in-game currency to be able to buy a map, and I got some help from the chat and just completely reworked my character several times over to test these things to see which one is actually going to perform. Now, my previous video, we were showcasing the Moon Dancers and the Trial of the Ancestor specters that we got available, which are league specific. Spectres in this video, however, are from the tier 17 maps, which are supposed to be core game monsters. So even after this league, we will be able to raise these minions as specters. The Flame Creator, however, as we're going to start with, has a basic, really nice setup of resistances. It has a tremendous amount of HP, allowing it to be ridiculously tanky, as well as having a very easy time to rest cap them. And that's because they have 40% elemental rest with a 25% base chaos rest. All specters, as you should if you are going to look through these type of informations on the data mined for yourself, should always be considered at around level 78 scaling. The reason for this is because 78 is about the same level you'll have when you do endgame min-maxing or endgame optimizing when it comes to your character, and very few builds goes above level 78, but they all strive to get to that point. Besides this, the Flame Creators are using two different abilities. They are sometimes shooting some exploding fire abilities that just explodes randomly on the screen, which happens once every 6 seconds. Outside of this, they will be spamming a literal rolling magma ability with one chain. What this means is that the actual projectile will bounce one time and then explode. If you support these with chain support, you'll be able to bounce more times before they explode. The explosion itself is where the big dick damage is coming from. Always ignites with the hits, and they deal quite significant damage. My problem with this is that rolling magma is very locked inside the idea of targeting. So if you want to have optimal damage output with these type of explosions, for this you would have to target before a boss, so that the boss would be hit by the first bounce and then explode on just behind the boss, so that you hit them twice. Obviously, this type of approach or AI is not something these specters will bring to the table. If I had faster projectiles, they actually felt like they had pretty reasonable clearing. The problem with having faster projectile was that as soon as I encountered harder rares, well, the explosion happened too far away from them, and therefore the damage was gone. So you had no single targets. Similar to the Moon Dancers, you could use these specters to compensate the single target with the use of other minions, similar to how we're using Moon Dancers in a Sue-Mancer build that we are, for some reason, calling Sue-Dancer. Don't even ask me about that one. So my problem with it is obviously that if we do that, then we're going into a fire approach, since these guys do fire damage. And as soon as I started tweaking with those numbers, the regular approach of a Sue-Mancer with Primal Crush Claw and all of that jazz is significantly better than the approach of this, and the Moon Dancers is also outperforming it quite drastically. Because again, the Moon Dancers is doing the exact same thing, where a single target is compensated by the actual melee minions, such as the zombies. But the clearing is significantly better because of the Moon Dancers. These guys don't bring that to the table, so we're going to move on to the next one. The next ones are Necrotic Bones. These are basically the specters that I was really hoping was going to outperform everything. I was very, very, very excited for these. Well, let's start off with the basics. First and foremost, they're really annoying to listen to. They're making really annoying sounds 24/7 when they're walking around. Now, you can turn this off. You don't have to worry about it too much. The other basics of this is that they have 75% lightning resistance, and then they have 0 cold, fire, and chaos. This means that they need to be having a lot more pressure or a lot more investments to cap their resistances, unless their HP is covering. Base HP at level 78 is 40,000, so you have two choices for higher endgame content with these Spectres. You either invest quite a lot into resistances and or run Purity of Elements, or you have to be very careful with them and or have a meat shield army in front of you so that they can tank whilst your Spectres are doing damage. Now, most of the Spectre builds in the current state of the game, not referring to the Wraith Lord helmet yet, is that we're going to be using this together with Zoomancer builds because it's just the best way to do it right now, as a Zoomancer can compensate the lack of other approaches that the Spectres don't bring to the table. Enough of that. I think that the HP is pretty reasonable enough to make this a comfortable approach, especially as they're ranged. The abilities they are using is that they have a mortar that they're using. And the good thing with the mortar, before people start spamming in the comments up with, oh, GHAZZY, you should use returning projectiles. Mortars do not interact well with returning projectiles. What then happens if you have something that explodes on impact on the ground or exploding on impact with an enemy, and you support that with returning projectile, what instead happens of exploding and dealing its damage, it's going to bounce and start to move back towards the caster and then explode. Makes no sense, because the projectile itself is basically no damage. It's the explosions we're looking for. Anyways, shotgunning is something that we're going to be utilizing in all of these builds or all of these Spectres, simply because of the fact that shotgunning was removed, but overlapping explosions from specifically the word mortar still works, which is why we're so tunnel visioning these type of abilities. So that's where the damage is coming from. The problem with the Necrotic Bones was that the damage was just not there. Now, obviously, before getting something like a Severed in Sleep to apply Wither, or having the Ascendancy node from the Necromancer to apply Wither, you could have like a utility minion apply Wither through your zombies, for example, which is what I did, because I didn't have enough currency to buy a Severed to test it out with. And all in all, they looked amazing. They had consistent damage. They were actually hitting their targets. The problem was that the lack of damage just wasn't there. And I tried this on a 6-link. We tried running Added Chaos without the Covenant, which would have been a natural progression unless you want to have another Spectre from a Delve chest. And the damage was just lackluster all around. And now I don't think Poison would be a good call, because the idea of Poison scaling minions is to apply a ridiculous amount of stacks of Poison and ramp that up very, very fast. This is why minion builds such as Range Enemy Weapon, or SRS works very well with Poison, because you stack hundreds and thousands of stacks of Poison. But if you have 3, 4, 5 Spectres that is hitting, a couple of times hitting X amount of hits per cast of barrage of projectiles, that is nothing compared to 15, 18 animate weapons or 20 raging spirits. That is why those minion builds are significantly better Poison than Spectres. So they were very lackluster, very disappointing. However, because of the consistent hits, the leech approach of Necromancer felt very good to play around with. But again, we had to move on. So the Wretched Defilers is the third one I want to talk about. And before we you get any comments saying, oh, what about the Brutus Spectres? Well, we tested them and they are actually very underperforming. And they were also expected to be underperforming based on the theoretical information. However, Wretched Defilers are the ones that look the most promising of all Spectres we've seen. They have a boss spell projectile Revenant ability that shot 9 projectiles in a spiral. So first off, we had to see how they actually interacted. They basically shot their 9 projectiles in succession as they were like fanning it out in front of them. This means that we would preferably be having these guys positioned right in front of a boss target. Having them right in front of a boss target would make them basically have 8 consecutive barrage projectile hit. But the problem was that they moved away from the bosses every now and then. I think this could have been solved with Predator, but then again, we then have to look at how would the clearing be with this type of approach. They were supportable with Spell Echo. They were supportable with things like Greater Volley or GMP, which is actually really, really good. The projectile trajectory behavior did not change with Greater Volley, which allowed us to very much use that because it has the less damage multiplier compared to GMP. Besides this, we also had a really pleasant experience using returning projectiles on these, essentially filling the entire screen with projectiles, especially if you combine this with Pierce. So Pierce, Greater Volley and Spell Echo, Rage Spectre was like the 4 great links that was using, and you filled the entire scheme with Proj. The biggest problem I had was the inconsistency of the actual damage. These guys are lightning damage, and they have a very wide span between low and high end. Not as crazy as players, but they went from level 78 scaling, they had 1900 to 4.4k, and I believe in game my current Spectres are level 72, and if you look at the 72 minion level scaling for these, the footage you're watching, they're doing between 1,346 base damage up to 3,141 damage. So obviously I decided to try to compensate the approach of the lucky hits to see if it actually was that being the problem when it comes to their inconsistencies in their performance. So I equipped the Perkle Stow. Now the Perkle Stow makes it so that lightning damage is lucky hit. This is how most lightning oriented builds is focusing on in terms of performance to do proper damage and remove inconsistencies such as this. The problem was it was still feeling very inconsistent. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure if it's a projectile issue or if it's a bug or if it's just that the span is so wide that even with the approach of Perkle Stow that they just weren't there. Maybe I just need better gear, but I felt like doing early map tier content, like yellow up to red tier, that shouldn't be a problem when you're running with half decent gear, the kind of budget on a character that I would consider being pretty much enough to do endgame pinnacle voidstone bosses. I would expect that to have a pretty comfortable experience killing rares and killing whatnot inside the end of yellow maps and start of red tier, and that is not something I experienced playing with these guys. Either way, there is a long list of Spectres available in the list from Citadel maps. We have obviously only tried a handful of them. There is a long list of these, and I am not sure if there's something I missed. I'm human, I make mistakes. I've tried the ones that I think would work, and they have all been significantly underperforming. I'd be happy to reconnect back to this and or circle back to this and try more. But as of right now, the best Spectres I've found are not from the core game. They are from the League mechanic. One of them being the Warcaller for onslaught buff to our minions, and the other one is the Moon Dancers, which we're currently playing in game as of right now. So if you're watching this video, make sure you pop by the Twitch stream, and I'll see you guys there. But as of right now, I can tell you this much: there is a Necromancer, a Grand Necromancer Spectre that is actually just doing its own Desecrate, using Spirit Offering and summoning its own minions. It's not summoning any minions. I don't know. It's awkward. So I don't know. I have no idea. The Wretched Defilers also revive monsters, but it's supposed to have a 5-second cooldown. And I'm going to be honest, the revive that they're doing a lot of damage. They're actually crazy, but I barely see them ever use the ability, which is really awkward. So I can have them run around and shoot their projectile, but the first thing that happens when I go into a map is that they do use the revive and have a large amount of army, like set of army that does everything and kills everything, but then they just never use it. And the Grand Necromancer is just not summoning any minions. So again, we have to figure these things out. Some of it might be bugged, some of it might be deliberate. I have no idea. We're going to go through it. If I find anything else, you can be rest assured I'll be posting a video about it. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the new Spectres, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Stay safe, and keep rocking.